Hello and welcome to your second online art lesson. Just wanted to say thank you to those of you who've sent work in. It's brilliant to see the progress that you're making at home. So over the next couple of weeks we're going to be looking at the different assessment objectives that you are required to meet in order to successfully pass your GCSE art coursework. So the first one is assessment objective 1, to be able to develop a written artist study on your chosen artist. So you will be required to look at different elements of the paintings or sculptures of the artwork. So what I've done is I've put 4 keywords down on here and I'd like you to match them to the definitions on the screen. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next slide, so if you want, feel free to pause this. Okay, so content, that's the description of the subject matter, what's going on in the painting, the item or theme. So if we look at the Mona Lisa as an example, that's just a portrait of a female. If we look at the form, that's the visual components, so the colour, the form, the line, the shape, the space and the texture. So that could be that the artist has just worked purely in black and white or has used really bright colours. The mood, that's the atmosphere or feelings that a piece of artwork creates. So if you think about surrealism and the surrealist feeling that gives the viewer when they look at the piece of artwork. And then finally, process. So that's the actions or steps taken to create something. So if you think about the steps that are taken to create a large marble sculpture, that would mean the different types of tools that the artist is using when creating the work. So I've just popped this slide on here because this is going to be one of the handouts that you'll get when you come back to school after lockdown, and it just basically outlines nicely the different kind of elements that you'll need to pass assessment objective number 1 and describes those really well. So it'll be looking at different artists relevant to your project and researching their work, you being able to copy off their work and producing it in a number of different styles. Okay, and then you giving your written analysis of their work. So these images on here are actually A-star examples. Okay, so your artist study, assessment objective 1, artist research, that there is actually 25% of your final mark. Okay, and that's based upon the research that you produce when you first start off your project. So the more informed your research is, the greater your understanding will be, and this means a more successful outcome and a higher mark. So artist research is easy if you follow the simple rules. Okay, so on here I've just put an example of Arkham Boulder's work. So if you want to do your artist research task on him, feel free to, but I really don't mind. If there's an artist that you've looked at in the past that you thought I really like his work or her work, then feel free to choose a different artist, that's fine. So I've put this on here because it's just an example of what you need when you create the title and the biography. So your title, try and do that in creative lettering, so as creative as possible, and then you need to be adding some information such as when was the artist born, when did he die, whereabouts was the artist from, and what was he best known for, did he belong to a specific art movement. You'll then be required to go into some more detail about the actual piece of artwork that you're looking at. So what I've done is I've just put an example of a piece of artwork on here. So this is one of the many heads created by Italian artist Palazzi. And what I've done is in black, they're the questions that you'll be required to answer, and then in green I've just put the answers to those. So if I just go through them really quickly, do you think that the work was observed from first hand, from memory, or from imagination? So I think that the work was created by the artist's imagination, although he might have looked at real heads to get the proportions right. So if you have a look, you can see that the eyes, the nose and the mouth and the ears, they're all in the correct places and correct sizes. How has the artist represented the subject matter? So Palazzi has represented the subject matter in a distorted way with unrealistic shapes. What kind of shapes has the artist used? And then there's some examples on there. So Palazzi has used very jagged, sharp shapes in this piece. So if you look at it, it'd be quite rough to touch. So what materials, techniques, tools, processes, equipment were used to produce the work? So this piece of work itself is actually an iron cast. I think first of all Palauzi would have had a wooden sculpture made to create the cast from, then filled the cast with iron. He may have also used metal work tools such as files to smooth off any sharp edges. Okay, and then what do you think that the artist may have been feeling when he created the piece of work? So I've responded to that with, I believe that when Palauzi created this piece of work, he may have felt frustrated and confused, as this is reflected in the confused, jumbled head. Now, finally, when you're creating your own piece of artist research, to get the best possible outcome, you should always put in your opinion as well. So what do you think about the work? Is there anything that you specifically like, or is there anything that really stands out to you? Okay, I'm going to let you get on with that. So again, remember, you can look at any artist that you'd like to. I really don't mind. I've added on here some examples of layout. So if you've got access to other materials, feel free to do this. And then I've also put on some key questions. Okay, so these here are to help you when you're writing your study. So they look at the context, so that's the bibliography, biography, and the content, the form, the process, and the mood. Okay, and then I've also given you a writing framework. So please try not to copy from this word for word. You don't need to use everything in each section, but have a go at it. And the words that are in the lighter grey, they're more keywords, okay? So they're just to help you answer your questions. Again, when you're producing your work, just play this back and you can pause it on this screen if you'd like to, if that makes it easier for you. And then finally, it's your turn to produce the piece of work. Think about the background. If you've got access to other materials, think about how you're going to decorate the background. Keep it simple but effective. It shouldn't take you any more than 5 minutes. Again, if you've got access to other materials, try and cut out some images of the artist's work and use those as examples, and have a go at drawing or copying off one of the pieces of work that you've been looking at. Okay, and finally, write your answers in full paragraphs. So you want 4 paragraphs in total, one for each section based on content, form, mood, and process. If you have any questions, please feel free to call in. And it'd be brilliant to see some pictures of some of the work that you're producing at home. Take care, and we'll speak to you next week. Thank you.